So the first part we saw how John Bosco had arrived at the gates of hell, and now his guide, his companion, possibly an angel, insists they go inside to see what hell is like on the inside. And the guide said to him, "Let's go in." I pulled back in horror. "Come," my guide insisted, "you will learn much." Then I remembered that before a person can be condemned to hell, he must be judged. So he felt a little bit relieved he wouldn't be stuck there permanently. "Let's go," he agreed. We entered and whizzed through at lightning speed down these corridors. And John Bosco noticed there were these threatening inscriptions on the walls. And they shone eerily. They're saying things like, "They will go away into eternal punishment." Another inscription, "Fire and worms will give to their flesh. They shall weep in pain forever." The lake of fire and brimstone were the beast and the false prophet. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. So these are reminders that in the past life they could have escaped this. There is no peace for the wicked. They came to this courtyard in this dream, and from here on my guide said to me, "No one may have a helpful companion, a comforting friend, a loving heart, even a compassionate glance, or a benevolent word. All this is now gone forever." So we're going to see there are these layers of hell and how different things apply. Do you want to see, or would you rather experience these things yourself? "I only want to see," St. John Bosco said. And so we stepped through that gate into a corridor, at the far end of which was an observation platform, and it was closed by a single sheet of glass, crystal pane. As soon as we crossed its threshold, I felt an indescribable terror and dared not take even one more step. Ahead of me, I could see something like an immense cave, which gradually disappeared into the recesses, into the bowels of the mountains. And they were all ablaze, but it was not like an earthly fire. The entire cave, from ceiling to floor, all the stones and everything, was glowing white hot. And yet the fire did not incinerate, it did not consume. So there's just the pain of the fire. I simply could not find words to describe the horror of this tavern. And then I was staring about in bewilderment when a lad dashed out of the gate. He emitted a most shrilling scream, something that would haunt one forever, like one about to fall into a cauldron of liquid bronze. And instantly he became incandescent and perfectly motionless. So where he fell, that is where he lay, it seems forever. Terribly frightened, I stared at him for a while, and he seemed like one of the oratory boys. "Isn't it so and so?" I asked the guide. "Yes, it is," was the answer. "Why is he so still, so incandescent?" "You chose to see only," he replied, "and be satisfied with that. Just keep looking." Other youth from the oratory came hurtling into the cave at breakneck speed, and they too emitted one heart-rending shriek, and then became equally motionless and incandescent. One had a hand frozen in the air, another a foot frozen in the air, another was bent over double on the spot where they had fallen. "In the place the tree falls, there it shall lie," as Scripture says. In effect, where they had fallen, they were going to remain forever. And I asked this guide, when these boys come dashing into this cave, don't they know where they are going? "They surely do. They've been warned 1,000 times," the guide responded. "But still they choose to rush in, because they do not detest sin, they are loath to forsake their sin. And further, they despise and reject God's incessant, merciful invitations and for penance. then provoked. Divine justice harries and hounds him, so that cannot halt until they reach this place. Oh, how unfortunate these boys must feel, knowing that they no longer have any hope. If you really want to know their innermost frenzy and fury, go a little closer, the guide said. I took a few steps forward. It's absolutely chilling. And many of those poor wretches were actually savagely striking at each other like mad dogs. And others were clawing even their own faces, tearing their own flesh. And just at that instant, the entire ceiling of the cave became transparent, so they could now see up into a patch of heaven, and there they saw their companions safe for all eternity, and this just tormented them further. The poor wretches fumed with rage. They panted with envy, because they had once ridiculed these righteous people. Why do I hear no sound? We'll go closer. So I did, pressing my ear to the crystal glass. I heard screams and sobs and blasphemies and curses, a tumult of voices shrill and confused. We fools thought their life was madness, speaking about their former companions, and we took our own fill of lawlessness and destruction. What has our arrogance profited us, and what good has our boasted wealth brought to us? So what does it help to gain the whole world but to lose one's soul? And then it struck me, but how can these boys actually be damned? Because last night they were still in the oratory. I put this to his guide, and he answered, the boys you see here are all dead to God's grace. Were they to die now, they would be damned. But let's go on. We went down a corridor into a lower cavern. So these levels in hell, progressively worse. And at the entrance it read, There worm shall not die, there fire shall not be quenched, they shall weep in pain forever. And here we could see on their faces how atrocious was the remorse of those who had been pupils in the college. The countless extraordinary means that they had had to mend their ways, to persevere in virtue, to earn paradise, and their lack of corresponding or response to the so many favors promised and given. What a torture it was for them to think that they could have been saved so easily if they had just kept to their good intentions. And in this lower cavern I saw the oratory boys who had fallen into the fiery furnace. I drew closer and noticed that they were in fact covered in worms, and vermin gnawed at their vitals, their hands, their eyes, their legs, their hearts. But they were motionless, and so they were prey. They had to experience every torment. And I drew even closer, but no one even spoke or looked at me. And I asked the guide, why? Each must suffer fully his own punishment with no reprieve whatsoever. And now you too must enter the cavern, the guide said. Oh no, I objected in terror. Listen, he said, what would you rather do? Visit hell and save so many boys on the outside, or leave them in this agony? I don't mind entering if I can rescue these beloved sons of mine from such torments. Come inside and see how good Almighty God lovingly provides 1,000 means for guiding your boys to penance and saving them from everlasting death. And he led me into the cave. Inside the cave, the guide showed to John, St. John Bosco, the common sins of the boys and also the means that God provided for them to avoid hell. And he advised how to preach and to counsel these boys. I bowed my head, John Bosco said, and I promised to do exactly as he had instructed. So now they're pretty much finished in hell. And then leaving that, they retraced their steps And as they stepped across the last bronze portal, the gate of hell, the guide turned to me and said, "Now that you have seen what others suffer, you too must experience a touch of hell." "No, no," I cried in terror. But he insisted, "Don't be afraid, just touch this wall." I could not muster the courage. "Just try it, only one touch," he commanded, "so that you may say that you have both seen and touched hell." "Look at that wall," he said. "There are 1,000 walls like this between here and the real fire of hell. 1,000 walls, each 1,000 miles measures thick and equally distant from the next wall. This means that there are literally millions of miles from hell's real fire. It is just a remote rim of hell." And he seized my hand and he forced it against the first of this 1,000 walls. It was utterly excruciating. I leapt back with a scream and found myself sitting up in bed. It had been a dream, but it was vivid and real. His hand was, in fact, still stinging. He rubbed his hand to ease the pain, and the next morning he noticed his hand was badly swollen. And later, the skin from his hand peeled right off. And in fact, St. John Bosco tells us that what he saw was actually far worse than he's describing here. So that was St. John Bosco's journey to hell, and a very real place it seems, but something very beneficial in this vision is that he could now go and really assist the boys, prevent them from going there in the future. And see what a loving father he was to his spiritual children. We do encourage you to join us next time.